Hey everybody, Luther here from Luther's Woodworking. Welcome to my channel. We have another toy video here for you. We're going to be making this tugboat right here. This little bitty tugboat, pretty easy to make. It is my own design. Not very many parts to it. Doesn't take much wood to make this. So we're going to just jump right into how we get this made here. It is made out of the base of it right here is actually made out of a 3/4 inch piece of wood, and then there's a 3/8 piece of wood on top of that to create that indentation here where the part goes in. So what you're going to need to start out with, you're going to need a piece of 3/4 inch pine. I use clear pine, no knots or anything in it. This is 3/4 inches by 3.5 inches wide, and it is, let me see here. Let me grab my tape measure here. It is about 8 3/4, 9 inches long. Because this boat, here's the pattern for this boat right here now. I suggest making some hard copies of this pattern. I will be putting a link to this pattern in the description. So I use 1x4s, which is actually 3.5 inches wide. It's just enough room to fit this boat on here to draw out the pattern. This is the 3/4 inch piece for the bottom of the boat, and then you're going to need another piece that is 3/8 inches thick by 3.5 by the same length, and that'll sit on top, and these will get glued together. But the first thing you're going to need to do, you cut yourself a piece of this for the bottom, and then you get yourself a piece and plane it down to 3/8 inches thick by 3.5 by 8 3/4, the same length as this. You take the bolt pattern that you got and you lay it on there, and what you're going to do is trace that bolt pattern. You're going to trace the cutout on that piece of wood. Now, this bolt pattern just fits on that 3.5 inch wide board, so make sure you get it right centered in there. And then what you do is take your pencil and trace that out. Then you're going to have this right here. And then what I did was took a washer and created a little round. I rounded the corners on this piece right here. You can see right here I rounded the corners on this here, so when you go to cut that out, it's not going to be square, it's going to be rounded on the corners. This gets cut out. That'll be the first step you're going to do. Now we're going to do that first, and then we're going to move on to these other parts, because there's other parts, or all these top pieces that get glued on in this bottom base here. But what we're going to do first is we're going to make that bottom base and get this glued together, because then we can, once this is clamped and gluing, we can go on and make the other parts. So we're going to head over to the scroll saw and get this here cut out. I'm going to drill a hole in here to thread my blade through first, and then we'll be at the scroll saw to cut this out. Alright guys, here at the scroll saw, now I drilled my hole in here for to thread my blade through. We're going to cut this area out on this piece of wood. I'm using the number 3 reverse tooth blade. I think that'll be fine for this here cut. And you want to just follow the line the best you can on this here. Alright, so we got this here piece cut out for the boat. We're going to head back over to the workbench and talk a little bit more about this. Alright guys, back at the workbench. Now, we have our piece cut out for the top of the boat. We're going to end up gluing this piece on top of your 3/4 inch piece like this here. Just get it glued on, clamp and glue it down on that piece. I'm going to do that off camera, but that's what has to be done. This piece here has to be glued on top of that because this is going to be the top of your boat. After this glue is dried, we're going to take this pattern, set it back on here, and then we're going to trace the shape of this boat on there, and then we'll end up cutting that out. But for now, we'll set this aside. I'll glue that later. We're going to go on to another part of the boat here. The actual center part of this boat, the cab part right here, there's a couple different ways you can make that because it's actually like this here shape right here. And this is the cab. And when I put the link for the pattern, I'll have a pattern of this and I'll have a pattern of this. That's pretty much all you need as far as the pattern. But it's the shape of this right here. Now there's a couple different ways you can make this piece. You can take a piece of 2x4, 2x6, cut yourself a block of wood out of that because this piece here is 1.5 inches thick. So you can cut yourself a block out of that. You can lay your pattern on here like this. And then you could just trace right here. And you could cut this out. Either with your bandsaw or your scroll saw. That's one way you can do it. Another way that you can do it, because most of my toys I actually make out of quality pine. I take 2 pieces of quality pine, these are 1.5 inches wide. I take 2 pieces and I glue it together. And then what you can do after it's all dried, you can square up one end, and then you can take your pattern, lay it on there, draw that out, square up the other end, and now you have that same shape right here out of a piece of quality pine. If you don't want to use 2x4s and stuff like that. That's another way you can do it. Or, here's a third way. You can actually take 2 pieces of quality pine, and these are 1.5 inches wide, and measure that distance from here to the end of your part right here. You can draw that line on here. You can glue 2 pieces of wood together like this to create that shape. Now I did that right here. We'll take the clamps off of this. I glued these 2 pieces together. I left that right here. Now I have that shape of that cabin, just like that. Now all I got to do is straighten it out on one end over here, sand this all up really nice, and you have that also that shape. So there's 3 different ways you can get the shape of this, whatever way you want to use. I prefer using quality pine when I'm building on my toys, so I don't have to deal with the knots and imperfections of wood. So that is the 3 different ways you can make this part. So what we're going to do actually is I'm going to cut this piece off straight right here. This is the 2 pieces I glued together in that shape. I'm going to cut this off. I'm going to sand this all, and then we'll go on to cutting these holes for the windows right here, and then for the windows right here, and then this smokestack right here that sits in the middle. These windows are 1/2 inch drilled in with a Forstner bit, and this is the 3/4 inch hole that actually holds that smokestack in. But first, what I'm going to do is cut this off, sand this piece all up, and then on the template that I'm going to have on my blueprint link, it'll have the holes right here marked where them holes get drilled. So I'm going to do that, and then we'll be right back. Alright guys, we are back. What I did was took my block right here, I squared up the other end of that block. I have an exact shape here for my cabin. It also has the holes marked where the windows are going to go. And what I did was actually laid that on there, and I marked where the windows go on both sides. You got to do it on both sides. And then also, what I did, you got to make that hole for the smokestack. So I just laid the ruler across right here. I just laid the ruler across there and found my center and made an X right there in the center, because that's where that 3/4 inch hole is going to go. I'll take my awl right here and just kind of mark a little hole right there so my drill bit can follow. And we'll do that to all these holes. And then, once you got all of them marked, we're going to go over to the drill press. We'll drill these 1/2 inch holes and drill this 3/4 inch hole here. And then we'll have one more thing to do to this cab before we're done with that. So let's head back over to the drill press and get these drilled out. Right here at the drill press here, I got my 3/8 Forstner bit in here. If you notice on this piece for the boat here, these 3/8 holes on the side for the windows, they're not very deep. They can be as deep as what you want. I'm not going to have that measurement on the plan, but just drill in just a little ways just to make it appear like it's a window. So here I just did one right here. You can see I just went in a little ways to make it appear like a window. Now what you can do is just take your drill bit down, put it back in that hole, and then what you can do is just lock your drill press to that depth. Now you can get all of them the same depth, because your drill press is going to stop right at that depth. So we got all the holes drilled for the windows. Do all at the same depth because we set the drill press stop. Now we're going to switch bits over to a 3/4 inch Forstner bit and drill that hole for the smokestack. All right, so got the bit in there. Now my rule of thumb, when I drill for a dowel to go in, I just use the top of my Forstner bit here as a guide. I'm going to drill in right to the top of my Forstner bit. That'll be the depth that'll go for that hole. Alright, so we have that hole drilled in there for the smokestack. And I just used the top of the Forstner bit as a guide for the depth. So this piece is almost done. We just have one more thing we got to do. We got to round the front of this cab off. You can see right here on this one here, you can see it's all rounded in the front. So we're just going to go over to the belt sander and round that off. Alright, here at the belt sander, this is my 1-inch belt sander. Comes in pretty handy doing small parts. I'm just going to round the front of this off right here. Now you could take that little washer and make some lines on it that you can go up to. I didn't do it on this one. I'm just going to eye it up. So we'll just round this here off in the front. So here we got that just rounded just a little bit on the front of that cab. Actually, I think I need some new sandpaper on my belt sander here, but it worked. We got it nice and round, so we're going to head back at the workbench here and get the rest of this completed. All right, guys, back at the workbench. Basically, we have this cab part complete. It's done. We're going to make this little roof that goes on top here, because that's the last part that we have to make, or one of the last parts we have to make. Remember that piece that you cut out right here? Remember that piece we cut out of that one chunk to make that indentation? If you save that piece, you can make that roof part out of that piece. And the roof part is actually, I made a template for that. It can be any size you want, really. I basically made mine 1 3/4 by 2 inches square. It's 1 3/4 by 2 inches, and it's actually 3/8 thick. And we're gonna go over to the bandsaw. You could use a jig. You could use your scroll saw too, but I'm gonna go to the bandsaw. I'm gonna cut this off square, and then I'm gonna actually rip it a little thinner, and then we'll have a piece for the roof. All right, guys, here at the bandsaw here, I'm just going to square up one end of that chunk that you cut out of that middle of that board to get nice and square end right here. All right, so I got kind of I got a square end on that. Now we just need to rip this down a little bit to the size we want it. So I'll just move my fence over here. I'm just going to put in my piece as a guide for the width. And we're just going to run this board through to cut that at the width we need it. So let me, I think we should be all right here to cut that through. I know it was kind of hard to see, but I actually cut that to the width I needed it for this piece right here. For the roof. Now we're just gonna take your pencil and mark across there and cut this again to make that square. So basically what you're doing is just using that scrap piece of wood that you cut out of that other board and creating yourself that roof for that part on the boat. That's basically all you're doing. So we're going to head back over to the drill press because we need to drill a 9/32 hole in the center of this. But we're going to get back to the workbench because I want to explain a few things. All right, guys, back at the workbench. We have our small little piece cut here for the roof part of this boat. Now, you can see in this boat here, I have a shaker pig mounted in the top of that. It doesn't have to be a shaker pig. It can be anything you want it to be. It can be a 1/4-inch dowel, whatever you want that to be. I just happen to have a lot of these, so that's what I used. But the hole you drill in the middle of this roof, make sure it's whatever size you use, or whatever you put in there. We're going to drill a 9/32 in here because that is what the shaker pig takes for drilling, for fitting in there. If you use a 1/4-inch hole, 1/4-inch dowel, maybe you want to drill a 1/4-inch hole. So we're just going to actually lay this template on this piece right here. And you can mark your hole. And we'll take our awl here. Just put a little mark in there. So now we have that marked right here where that hole's got to go. We're just going to drill that in far enough. Actually, you can actually drill that completely all the way through because it actually sits right on top of that cabin part, so it ain't going to matter. So we're going to do that and in a minute, but let's just do one more thing. The smokestack that goes in your cabin part, here's the one we made right here, the smokestack. What you can do is take a piece of sandpaper, instead of having it real sharp on the edge and on the top, just take it and just soften up that edge on a piece of sandpaper. There, you got one edge nice and soft right here, so that'll fit right in there like this here. Let's go over to the drill press and drill this hole. Okay, I got a 9/32 drill bit in here. We're just going to drill a hole so that shaker pig can fit in there, so we can glue that in the top. Okay, I'm going to drill a little bit deeper. All right, see, so we have that shaker pig will fit right on the top of on that roof. And then another thing you're going to want to do to this roof, you're going to want to go on your belt sander again and round the front of this roof in the front. Let's go over to the workbench and I'll show you what I mean. All right, so on the front of this boat right here, the front of that roof is rounded. So I'll just round that off camera and we have that all complete then. So let me get that rounded off and we'll be back. All right, so I got this piece all rounded in the front. You can glue your shaker pig in, but before you do any gluing the parts together, we need to sand all these parts, soften them all up nice. That there, and this roof is going to go on like this. It's going to sit on there like this here, and that'll actually be the cabin part of your tugboat. So pretty much all this is done. We just got to sand all these parts, and I'll do that off camera. And then when we come back, we'll have the bottom of this boat ready to cut out, and then we should be able to finish up the boat. So We'll be back when all that glue is dried in the bottom of the boat. Then we'll be back to finish it up. All right, guys, we are back. I got that top piece glued onto that 3/4 inch bottom of the boat here where we cut out. We're going to cut the shape of the boat out here. So take your pattern that you made, and we're going to lay that right on the, and line it up with the cutout that you made on that top piece. Something like this here. And then we're going to trace around that. And that's going to be where you're going to cut. Now I know it comes close to the edge of the board. If you feel comfortable using a bigger and wider board to do this boat, you can. I just use a 1x4. So we'll just trace that on there. And you can see right here that it does come close to the edge, but we're going to be cutting on an inward cut, so it should be just enough to get this cut out. So we're going to head over to the scroll saw and cut this out, and then we should be getting real close to getting this boat done. All right, here at the saw. Now, this boat actually gets cut at a 15-degree angle. On my saw, this top arm tilts 15 degrees. On a lot of saws, the table will tilt. So just make sure you got it tilted the right direction for this boat to be cut. Let me just grab this bolt here and I'll show you what I mean. Oops. Here's the bolt right here. The actual cut is inward on the boat, not out. It's in. So make sure you got it set at the right angle. We'll just cut this, and I like to start with the back of the boat, because then I cut this back piece off, and then I can just continue around up to the point, and I'll come over here and go up to that point. So let's just get this started here, and take your time. If you have not cut on an angle on a saw, you might want to practice before you cut, because it is a little bit different cutting on an angle than it is just cutting at 90 degrees. And I'm using a number 7 reverse tooth blade because we're cutting a little bit more than an inch thick wood. So here we go. So what I do is just cut the back of the boat out first. And take your time, stay on the line. It is, like I said, it's a little different cutting on an angle than it is cutting 90 degrees. So there is the second cut. You can see right here, I mean, it's hard to see even where that's glued together. It's a nice, smooth cut for a bolt. And you can see, you just have enough room to get that bolt cut out on a 1x4. So we're going to start again right at the point and head back to the back. Okay, so here is the bolt, right here, nice and smooth. You don't even really have to do any sanding to it, maybe a little bit on the top, a little bit on the bottom. So we're going to head back over to the workbench. We got a couple more things we got to do, and then we should be done with this bolt. All right, here back at the bench. Now we got the bolt cut out. Now before, when I trace this pattern of the bolt on, make sure that you mark your hole for the back for this towing pin back here. I forgot to mark that before, so just put that back on there. Make sure you mark for that. That's going to be a 15/64 inch hole because I'm using one of these axle pegs for that. You can use a dowel or whatever you want to use for the back right here. So we'll drill that, and then when we come back, all we have to do is take the top piece that you made with everything in here and glue that to the bottom right there, and we should be done. So I'm going to drill this quick, and then I'm going to come back, and then we're going to sand this up, and then all we have to do is glue this in here. Okay, so what I did is I drilled that hole for the towing pin in the back. And then I took and ran this on the sander a little bit just to kind of clean this all up a little bit, softened up the edges. We're going to put a little glue in this hole and get things glued together here. And then on this here, it gets set in there and gets glued, so we'll just throw a little glue on this bottom piece here. Alright, so my camera went kind of crazy on me, but I got this piece all glued in the bottom of the boat. We got the pin glued in. The boat is actually done. So just to recap a little bit on the video here, make yourself some patterns. It sure does help when making this boat, especially if you make more than one. And I got mine painted a different color in case I drop these pieces on the floor. As far as the cab part right here, these are 1/2 inch holes drilled in for the windows. I know I mentioned 3/8 before in the video, but I meant 1/2 inch holes. But you could put 3/8 if you want to. To get the shape of this here cabin part, I mentioned a couple different ways you can do it. So that's up to you how you want to do it. So pretty much this boat is done. It's a fun, easy little project to do, and it doesn't take much lumber or time to do. So if you liked the video, give me a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and ring that bell. I do have more videos. So we'll see you guys later.